What we're going to do is practice a little bit learning about how frames work in animation. What you're going to do is open up the animation practice file from Google Classroom, and what you're going to notice is when you pull up the layers, you're going to see that there are several layers here. There's a flame layer, you have the rocket ship, you have a 3, 2, 1, launch. So for our first frame, we're going to keep all of the layers off except for the rocket ship. If you do not see the timeline at the bottom of the screen, there might be a little tab that you have to click here, or you can go to Window, Timeline to make that visible. So here's our first frame in our animation. To create a new frame, I'm going to click on the little plus symbol down here at the bottom. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the countdown. So I'm going to turn on the 3. Then I'm going to create a new frame, and I'm going to turn on the 2. I'm going to create a new frame, turn on the 1, create a new frame, turn on launch, create a new frame, and then make the flame visible. I'm going to make one more frame. I'm going to hold Shift while I select the flame and the rocket ship layer. And I'm going to hold Shift as I move the rocket up just barely off the edge of the canvas. We don't want to have it completely go off the edge or it will disappear. So now if I go to frame 1 and I hit the play button in the timeline, I have created an animation. I've made a still object move. But notice that the rocket ship just goes from the bottom of the page to the top of the page. So what we have to do is we have to put some frames in between frame 6 and frame 7. This is called tweening, when we put additional frames between. So I'm going to select frame 6, hold Shift on my keyboard, and select frame 7. The button next to the Add New Frame button, it looks like some dots that are getting progressively smaller or bigger. And if you hover your mouse, it will say Tween Animation Frames. So if I click on that, I can then choose how many frames I want to add. The more frames, the smoother the animation will be, but the larger the file will be. I'm just going to use 5 in this demonstration, but you can experiment with adding your own number of frames to this. So you'll notice now I have 5 additional frames between the last 2 frames. So you can see what it's done. It's moved it slightly throughout all of those. So now if I go to frame 1 and hit the play button, now I have a little bit more progressive animation, but the animation is very, very choppy. That's because my frame rate is too low. I have half a second on each one of these frames. So I'm going to click on frame 6, hold Shift, and select to frame 12. That way I can change the time all at the same time. You can do it for each individual frame if you want to. So right now they're at half a second. That's a little bit too long. If I do 0.2 seconds, let's see what that does to it. So I'm going to go back to frame 1. I'm going to play that. A little bit smoother of an animation, but I think I want it a little bit smoother yet. So I'm going to go to frame 6, hold Shift, and select to frame 12. And I could do 0.1 or no delay. I'm just going to do 0.1 for mine. I'm going to test the playback on this again. And now we have a much smoother animation. Then we have to choose how many times we want it to play. So right down here in the bottom of our timeline, we can have it play forever, which means it will loop over and over again. We can have it play 3 times, or we can have it play once. Go ahead and have it loop and do the forever. And now we have to render the file. So we're going to go up to File, Export, Render Video. So now we have to make it into a video. So we're going to render it. So we're going to go to Render Video. And then we have to, you can name it if you want to, select your folder, so where you want it to go. So if I click on here, I can choose if I want it to my desktop, to my documents, and everything else. So our format, let's make a QuickTime file or a movie file. And or if you have the option for an MP4, that will work as well. And then we're going to click render. You're just going to check to